Good evening. Thanks for joining me in my live stream this evening. There's no script here. We barely even have a plan for this. I get requested a lot to do live streams to record repairs, so that's really what we're doing here this evening. We have a couple devices lined up. We'll just kind of roll them through here. We'll do a couple repairs. Not sure how long we're going to be live, but I'm interested in doing some Q&A while I work. Not a whole lot to talk about a lot of times during some of these fixes, but we can go ahead and get started. The first device that we're going to be repairing today is this iPad. This is an iPad Air 4th gen. Obviously it's got a broken screen on it, so I just wanted to go through the process of kind of what it takes to do a repair like this. We do have a replacement screen on hand that will be installed into the device. This mat here is a preheater, which I use to kind of soften the glue around the edges of the screen. So we're going to set that on the pad. Now that may take a while to heat up. So, I mean, if there are any questions, if you'd like to make comments on the stream, I'm happy to answer any of those. Else we'll just kind of wait for this. I can give a little bit of background on myself and on the business. First of all, my name is Tom. I don't remember if I even introduced myself at the beginning there. I started this business less than a year ago. I have been personally doing electronics repairs for a long time, over 10 years, doing it as a hobby, much longer doing it periodically as a hobby with my own devices. Once I kind of got proficient with doing electronics repairs, I would do repairs for friends, for family, just kind of on the side as needed. And over time, I just kind of realized that it's my passion. This is what I like to do the most. So the path that life has kind of given me has guided me here. We started the business, the LLC, mid last year. Opened up a storefront here in Kenton, Ohio, back in December. Since opening that first shop, we have already moved. We're now in downtown Kenton on the square at 7 North Detroit Street. Currently, we're only taking a walk-in customer devices. We do plan to open up to online mail-in orders, but we're not quite to that point yet. We repair mostly video game consoles. That's kind of our forte here, and that's what we like to do kind of the most. But we do tablets, cell phones, PC repairs. If you have any other electronic devices, if it's something I can help with, I will. If it's outside of my skill set or something we're not familiar with, we will just have to turn those devices away. But sometimes we'll be surprised at how easy it is to fix something. For example, we've already had a ham radio in here. I really didn't know if I could fix a ham radio, but we brought it into the shop, took a look at it, and we were actually able to get that device working again. So if you've got something that needs fixed, you can bring it in and we'll take a look at it. And if it's something we can do, we'd be glad to do it. So this feels kind of warm. We'll see if we can get started lifting the screen on this iPad. Now when they're cracked like this, it can be difficult to get suction cups to stick on it. But the first thing I like to do is try to separate it with suction cups. But as you can imagine, when there is a crack, suction cups don't always like to stay down. And usually I would also shut down the device, but Apple requires you to log into the iPad. And I do not have the password for this iPad, so we will just be doing this carefully and cautiously, and we will just unplug the battery when we get inside. Also, if there are any issues with the live stream, if my microphone's too loud or too soft or anything like that, please let us know. This is our very first live stream, so I'm kind of anticipating some technical issues as we go. Also, I don't typically speak while I'm doing repairs, so there's a chance you might see some human error here as well. We'll see what happens. Okay, so I have these pick's just resting right underneath the edge of the screen where that glue has lifted up. So I'm going to carefully maneuver these around the edge, try to get underneath the screen. Now, since it's already broken, it's not uncommon for these things to just spider web and just really become a mess when you're taking them off. Yeah, again, thanks for your patience as I'm kind of silently working away here. Just to give you kind of some foreshadowing, I suppose you could say. The next device that we're going to do after this one will be a Nintendo Switch. That Switch has a broken charger port on it, so that's a little more of an advanced repair. So I just kind of wanted to warm up, if you will, on the live stream by doing something like an iPad. These can be tricky at times, but usually we can get through one of these without much issue. Got kind of a crunched up spot on the edge here. And I do have a friend on hand here, so if you do leave a comment or something and I'm not able to respond to that right away, hopefully he will alert me and let me know there's something there, and I will try to answer your questions if you have any. Okay, so I can kind of feel that the screen has cooled down a little bit. That glue is going to harden back up as it cools, so I may put it back on the heater here for a moment. See how far I can get. It is the beauty in taking off a broken screen, is that it's already broken. I don't like to get glass chips everywhere, but it's just kind of how it goes. Sometimes you just got to break it apart to get it out of there. Like right here, this glue is holding down this little section of glass. I'm going to have to kind of break it up and get it out. Alright, we'll go around the other side. I intend to be live for maybe an hour. I don't know. The Switch may take us longer than that. I may cut the stream off early. I don't really know what to expect, so expect the unexpected. Also, I believe there's a chance for some inclement weather, so there's a chance that our service could be dropped out anyway due to that, so anything could happen. Yeah, this glue is kind of hardened up. I'm going to wedge a pick in here and we'll set it back on the heater for just a bit. Meanwhile, I'll check for comments. Sam, good to see you, buddy. Thanks for tuning in. Being too modest, if there's not too much, you can't fix. Well, I'm sure there's a lot out there that I can't fix, but I like to try. I'm not afraid to give it a try. That's the other beauty in fixing broken devices. They're already broken. So most times you can give it a shot. Sometimes you can make it work. Sometimes you can't. Oftentimes with older devices, it comes down to just something like a capacitor or something like that. Even with newer devices, sometimes it comes down to something like a individual capacitor. I've repaired some PlayStation 5s that it's just a little cap inside that for some reason, who knows why, ends up shorted the ground and then the device doesn't work at all.
I got a question.
Sure.
You able to fix the glass on the back of the older iPhones?
Yes, we can fix back glasses on iPhones. There's really only one thing to note, is the glass that we put on the device does not have the Apple logo on it. It may be obvious, but that's kind of a trademark issue, so we will be putting a back glass on it that's just flat with no logo, but we can do it. I don't really have a camera to pan over, but we have a laser back glass removal machine just for that purpose.
Another question for you, Tom. Do you fix PlayStation controllers?
Do I fix PlayStation controllers? I can, and I would. The issue that arises with most video game console controllers is the cost to do the repair in my shop oftentimes exceeds the replacement cost for the controller. So unless it's something like an Elite controller, something that's more expensive to replace, that would be a better candidate to bring to us for repair. Currently, our starting rate for repair work is $60 for the first hour. So that alone, $60 in a lot of cases will be enough to replace your controller. Now, we do offer to purchase broken devices. So if you have a controller that is broken and it's not something that's viable to repair here, you may be able to recoup some of your losses by selling it to us. Then we can kind of go through that repair when we are able, and maybe we can resell that controller to somebody else in the future. I do like to keep things out of dumpsters and out of landfills as much as I can. This is the real world. You can only do so much. So if you have stuff that you're going to end up tossing out, bring it in here. Maybe you can get a couple dollars for it. You have any other questions?
Not right now.
Thanks for asking. Yeah, this iPad's giving me a tough time. Let's see if I can get around this edge. I am using a lapel mic, which is down on my polo shirt, so I feel like I might be shouting into the mic. Hopefully it's okay. It's really rough to get in with all these. See if I can hold this up to the camera. You can see there's lots and lots of little cracks along the edge of that screen there. It's out of focus, but it's really difficult to get through all of those little cracks. So we're about, I'd say, 60 to 70% of the way around the screen, but this side is going to take a little longer than the others did. So we're going to put this back on the heating mat here. You can see that the screen did finally break, which is fine. We'll get this side warmed up a little more. Now I used to use, and I still could use, kind of a heat wand to do this. You could use this with I have a rework station just out of sight there. And you could wave the hot air around near the edge of the screen too. Although since I picked up this mat, I really like it. It allows you to warm everything up uniformly. The whole screen can get warm at the same time. And you don't have to worry about waving that thing around while you're trying to do what I'm doing now by getting the little picks in here and removing it. And when it's uniformly warm, it tends to stay warm a little bit longer. This is really difficult for some reason. There we go. Sometimes you can get a little piece of the adhesive and just kind of pull it out of there all the way up the edge, but kind of lucky if you get that. I'll see if I can accomplish that here. Get this chunk out. Yeah, like this little strip of adhesive. All of that has to come out anyway. Nah, it doesn't want to cooperate. So bear with me as I get through this. The switch will be a little more straightforward. It'll all be just removing screws and removing parts and putting those back together. Maybe we won't have to fight the device like we are with this one. Now I am familiar with where the ribbon cables are running behind this screen. So if you were to attempt this on your own, you may want to research that first so you don't reach in here and sever a cable or do something unintended that would break the device more. When you're doing this for a living, if that happens to you, you're responsible to fix it. So make sure you know what you're doing before you begin, is my advice. We're getting close. There we go. Come on up. Not exactly how I wanted, but it came up. Okay. So then, this is the inside of your iPad. I'm going to turn off this heating pad and we'll get it out of the way here. Okay, now you'll see we still have chunks of glass here on the frame. I will be going around and getting all that out of there. But first thing I want to do is get the screen itself detached from the frame of the iPad, because it doesn't really want to lay flat and you don't want to break anything or pull anything loose. So let's see which screw. Here, okay. That is tri-wing, which we don't need yet. I didn't really have my bits sorted. I just have the most common ones kind of in a pile up here. Lots of tri-wings. All of those that I've picked up are tri-wing bits. I need a Phillips. That's a Torx. Now this one might work. I may have to step to the side here and get a bit out. Nope, this one will work. Alright. Apple likes to use these little shields to hold down the ribbon cables. So there are pros and cons to each kind of brand that you work with. Apple does have a lot of pros with repairing. I don't mind repairing Apple products for the most part. Screens are usually pretty easily accessible. You go through the front, take the screen off, put a new screen on. Samsung devices, for example, you usually will go through the back of those, and then you have to take every single screw in the whole device out, go through the back, and replace the screen. It just kind of depends on the device. But Apple's pretty easy for the most part to repair. The problem with Apple is that once you repair some components, they like to disable features. So, for example, you may have Face ID unlock on your phone, but if you ever replace the front camera on your phone, they turn that feature off for you forever. You can never use it again unless you go to a certified Apple repair shop and get it repaired by them. Not a big fan of that, but that's how they do it. You don't have those kind of problems with other brands, generally speaking. Even if the part comes from another genuine Apple product, you can take two iPhone 14s and you can take the front-facing camera from one, swap it to the other one, and vice versa, and then both of those phones will be non-functional as far as the face unlock and other features that require that front camera. Those things do get in the way of doing repairs. But if it's just a screen, it's usually not a big deal. Batteries, not a big deal usually, but they do like to alert you, send you a notification that you have a non-authentic battery in your phone. I don't know what their purpose of doing that is, other than trying to drive you back to them for their repairs, but I digress. We do the best we can here with what's available to us for an affordable price. We try to keep our prices as low as we can while still being able to get by. Our shop also offers a 30-day warranty on, I want to say, all of our repairs. That kind of was our slogan. However, there are a couple situations where we can't give you a warranty, but those are always outlined at the time you drop your device off. For example, liquid damaged items. It's difficult to provide a warranty because we may be able to get that thing working again. If you drop it in a swimming pool or something, you can bring it in. There's a chance we can get it to work again, but there's also a chance that it's going to stop working again. So in some cases, no warranty, but we try to warranty as much as we can.
We have a question from Kevin.
Got a question from Kevin.
Drift repair on an Xbox One controller.
For price questions, I won't be really discussing price during the live stream. If you need an estimate for your repair, the best thing you can do is write us an email, give us a call, reach out to us on Facebook, let us know what you've got, what's going on with it, and then we can actually get you an estimate. The best thing you can do is just walk right into our store with it. If it's something you think that may take some time to go over to address all this, what's going on with it, if you go to our website, www.GameOver.tech, there is a place there where you can schedule your own appointment. We do allow self-scheduling for certain hours while we're open, so I would encourage you to schedule an appointment or just stop by during regular business hours and we'll take a look at what you've got there. Mainly with the price, every device is different. So unless it's like a very routine, common thing we do like to diagnose it first. We do free diagnosis, so you could always drop your device off with us, open a ticket, drop it off. We can get you an estimate, and if it's something you want to proceed with, that's fine. We'll go from there. If it turns out that it's not something you want to proceed with, we'll get your device returned to you, and we will not charge you anything for that diagnosis. Now that is subject to change, but we are trying to keep it that way for as long as we can, because I really feel like that's the best way to approach it. Keep everybody satisfied, and you know what you're getting into before it comes in. Okay, so we have everything essentially out of here that needs to come out. It looks like there's a pet hair or something got in there. So we can set, well, we got a little bit of glue up here. Get this out of there. Also, if the camera is too far away or something, you can always provide your feedback there. We can make adjustments. I do have multiple cameras set up in here. As we go to each station with these repairs, you'll see some different things. I've got a microscope camera, and I've got a second workstation over here to my right, so when we go over to that workstation, you'll be able to follow me over there. This is just a general work mat. I tore my glove. I'm going to replace that real quick. Have we got another question here? Oh, hi, Joe. Thanks. Seeing the master at work. Well, if you say so. I try to keep myself humble, man. I don't claim to be able to fix everything. Although I'm doing this professionally, sometimes I do still feel like an amateur. You know, depending on what's going on, sometimes I still have to learn things too. Okay. Okay, we had a note on here. Yes, it says disconnect battery recommended. Absolutely. And the battery, unfortunately, on this device is very hard to disconnect because it's underneath this, and the battery actually slides under and it's clamped down. So really, honestly, on this device, it's going to be hard. So we're going to proceed with connecting the new screen on. That is kind of a risky move, but I'm going to opt to take it. Now these are a lot better than the phones, because with a phone screen, you have your home button and your front-facing camera and some other devices on the screen. You would have to remove from your old screen, fasten it to the new screen. But with this particular repair, we should be able to just kind of snap this in. Before I do that, I'm going to reveal there's an adhesive glue strip pre-installed onto these screens. Most of the time these are fine. I don't mind using these adhesive strips. Sometimes though, with some brands, or if I have a poor experience with one of them, I will just use my own glue. I have a certain glue that I use for screens. But here we're going to use this pre-installed glue strip. There we go. I'm going to take one final look through for any little pieces of glass, because I just spotted one here. Even the tiniest little chunk of glass that remains will mess everything up. Your screen won't sit flat, and if the user pushes down on that area of the screen, it may just crack. So we got to make sure all of the debris is out of this little groove. There's a few pieces over here to get out. Got little glass pieces all over my workstation. So we may be taking a small break between repairs so that I can kind of clean up the workspace. I don't want to get glass in any other devices either. Okay. Now, some of these devices that I'm working on here, I should mention, are customer devices, so we do try to conceal any identifying information, but if you send your device in here during a time where we're feeling like doing a live stream, you may be able to see your device repaired live online. Alright, we're going to reattach this carefully. I don't always work with gloves, but I do try to work with gloves. It's a good idea. carefully. I'm just trying to line that up there. I don't know if you heard it pop. It snapped right in there. Got another one. Boring silence, sorry. Concentrating, you probably can't even see because I have to tip the glass over, but we'll be back in business in just a second here. Gotta have it lined up just right. Okay. Where did I set the tweezers? There they are. Okay. We have a working screen. So it is on and functional. However, we cannot forget, I would be lying if I said I never forgot these, but we do need to reinstall all of these little metal pieces that hold these ribbons down. And this is the difficult part here for me, is trying to keep everything straight. If I so much as drop this screen, you never know if it's going to come unplugged or if the ribbon cable will tear or something like that. In which case, I do not have another one of these screens in stock, so we would have to order it. Don't want to do that. I also don't want to curse myself by saying bad things like that. You know, it could happen. Trying to get the screw on my magnetic driver. They're so tiny. And I'm actually using the wrong bit, which doesn't help, but it'll work. Fell off again. Bear with me. I'm going to get the correct Phillips bit here. Hopefully I've got one handy. They just keep falling off of that one. How long have we been streaming at this point? Can someone tell me?
40 minutes.
40 minutes already. Wow. Okay, well, maybe we'll just do one device today. I don't know. I would like to do the switch. Maybe I'll just poll the audience and see if you guys want to hang around for that, because that switch is probably going to take about the same amount of time to repair. That is USB port replacement. If we don't get to it today, it is a common fix. We can probably do a stream in the future where we do something like that. These things are so small. Sorry, I'm just trying to get the screw on the bit here. I feel like a caveman trying to figure this out. There we go. There we go. One more screw. Yep, so now you guys can see why when you do drop something off, I like to say, it takes me about an hour. Most devices I can get through in an hour. Not all of them, but most of them I can get done in an hour. Something like a Samsung Note, man, those things take forever. But most Apple products and some of your common cell phones can be done in an hour's time. Got some tape stuck under there. There we go. Is there tape on the top? Nope. All right. Now I need to carefully put this back in the frame, and as you can see, I've got the ribbon cable kind of stuck in the frame here, so I need to address that before I start pushing this in place, or I'll crack it. So
Kevin says let's definitely see some gaming repairs.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. We'll see what we can do, Kevin. I had an Xbox lined up as well, and I feel like I mentioned it to someone who was going to watch the stream today, but that turned into a kind of a bigger repair, and I really didn't want to tackle that during the live stream because that one is going to kind of take a while. Okay, what do we have going on in here? Why is that stuck? These are ribbon cables. They can be folded, but you gotta be careful not to tear them. That's the big deal. Okay. Okay. I believe we are installed. I do like to clamp these down while the screen sets there. We clamp it down all the way around the edges. So what I will do with this one, I will set it aside. And of course the screen's not coming on now. Battery may have been low on this one. So we're going to go ahead and set this one aside. I will revisit that one as needed. But the repair should be pretty well complete on that. So what I'm going to ask for now, if you guys are viewing the live stream, I am going to take a quick break. We're going to get kind of the broken glass cleaned up off of this. Give me about 5 or 10 and we will be right back. Okay, we're kind of back here. I got the switch here. I'm going to show you guys what exactly is wrong with this. So this one came in. I'm going to switch to my microscope camera here. I've got a microscope. This switch came in from a customer who was, he noticed this pin was bent in here. Well, that's way out of focus. Let me see. Wow. Huh. There we go. So he actually noticed this pin was bent and brought it in for repair. Let's see if I can get this focused up for you guys. My view through the top of the microscope is going to be different than what you see. Come on. There you go. You can kind of see it. Let me grab a pair of tweezers. Maybe I can point it out. But there is a bent pin right there. So that is definitely affecting this thing charging. It's affecting it connecting to the dock. And my advice is, once you spot that, to not plug in any chargers. You don't want to short something to ground and fry your switch or fry a chip in the switch there. Then if you do, you know where to bring it. We can repair most of that stuff. But it's best to prevent it. So we'll come back over here. We'll start tearing into this. We do have a brand new USB-C port right here. I try to keep those in stock. Let's see, which bit do we have in here? All right. So yeah, this repair may take close to an hour, just so everyone knows what we're getting into here. I don't like to rush things for obvious reasons there, but we'll go through it as quick as we can, reasonably. Okay, so taking the one screw out of the top, two out of the bottom, and then the center screw on each Joy-Con rail. And then you got one here under your kickstand, which on this one the kickstand was missing. Then you have tri-wing screws, which your Phillips bit will not work on those. If you try to shove a flathead or a Phillips in there to get those out, I mean, that may work if you are desperate to get into it and you don't have the right tools, but you really should be using a tri-wing screwdriver to take these out. So once those get rounded out, it really gets difficult to open it up. So with all of those screws removed, we should be able to get inside. Let's open up the game cart. Yeah, there's no game in it. Let's start with the bottom. We use these plastic, these are from iFixit. I love the iFixit repair kits. And these plastic little guitar pick kind of looking tools will keep you from scratching up your device. So you really shouldn't be going into these with a screwdriver or anything metal, or you're just going to end up scratching up. There are times, like you've seen me earlier using this device, which is metal. There are applications for metal tools, but it's best to just use the plastic spudgers and pry tools. There we go. Get this computer mouse out of the way. Okay, so I actually don't have a screw tray. We're putting black screws on a black mat, but that's okay. Oh, see, now I still have the tri-wing bit on. I'm going to replace that, go back to Phillips. I believe I'm using a 000 Phillips. Gotta take off the, this is the SD card reader here. If you pull it just right, you can get it to unplug without damaging it. You certainly don't want to pull it this way. You don't want to rip things apart. You want to try to get that lifted straight up out of there. I actually have an electric screwdriver I typically use too, but I think we left that on the charger. Oh, there it is. Well, I'm almost done now. I'll use that for reassembly. One screw in the middle. And then, I'm not sure if those need to come out yet. I could take them out. I don't think they're attached to this shield. There we go. So that shield serves a couple purposes. One, I believe it's an EMI shield required by the FCC for interference and that sort of thing. But there's also a blob of thermal compound here, which helps draw heat away from the processor. So this shield also kind of works as a heat sink. Just fun fact for you. Now that USB-C port, I'm gonna actually switch workstations here. Let's flip over to this workstation. Don't know if you guys can see very well. I can turn off the microscope light. Now that I'm kind of down into the board, I'm gonna keep those screws over there and we're gonna separate what we're doing here. So first and foremost, plastic tool, unhook the battery. We don't want live power anywhere in the console while we're working on it. It's also a good idea to take care of any ribbon cables. Now these are, maybe I can get the microscope on this, we'll see. I'll try to get you guys the best view I can. Let's see, let's zoom this out. So this ribbon cable actually goes out clear to the front of the switch for the digitizer for your touch controls. And these are super fragile. If they break, pain in the butt. There we go. We got it folded up without breaking. It always makes me sweat just a little bit. And I put the edge of my tweezers underneath there and I'll just carefully bend that back. So that's out of the way. We have some cables down here as well. I want to get the little retention clips lifted on these. There we go. Carefully unplug these. And I will say, with the Nintendo Switch, here I'm going to turn this over, these ribbon cables are very sensitive. You just got to take your time, be gentle. You definitely don't want to pull or pry anything without the most care you can give it. This is everybody's favorite connector because that's the one that a lot of repair technicians end up breaking. Now, again, like I said earlier in the stream, I don't want to foreshadow something like that happening to me live on stream, but it could happen. We're going to get to that in just a moment. What we're going to do first is take out the game cartridge reader. If the view is not good, let me know. We will make some adjustments for our next stream. I would appreciate any feedback you guys have, good, bad, or otherwise. I want to make this a good experience for everyone involved. I'm not big into live streaming, haven't really done it, so I was kind of nervous coming into today, but things seem to be going okay. Let's see if we can get you back in here. See, now I removed the game cartridge reader. Now we're going to just be removing some of these. I believe this is for the wireless antenna there. We're going to get that unhooked. There's one down here. Assembly and disassembly is the worst part, if you ask me. Okay. Now we have everybody's favorite connector, so I will carefully lift the latch.
So Tom,
There we go.
You got a comment?
We got a comment.
So Sam says, if that second table could have the same view as the first table, that would be awesome.
Well, the problem with that view, I'll show you here. My microscope is right over top. So I opted to do a side cam. I understand what you're saying. We may be able to add a separate camera. That was kind of my intention for having the workstation off to the left there, but I appreciate the feedback. We'll see what we can do for that.
Kendra says the boys both agree with Sam.
All right. Can't see anything. Sorry, folks. Let's get back under the microscope so then you can see I was working at that. So, yeah, usually you want to use a plastic tool, but I'm just carefully kind of keeping my tool flat while I get underneath the ribbon cable and pull it out. I am going to switch to a plastic. There we go. There we go. Hopefully you guys could see that. We're just going to fold it back carefully so it's not in the way. So I will try not to use that right camera then, since the view is so bad with it. All right, we have a ribbon cable down here. So it is kind of hard to get over top with this big microscope hanging out.
Everybody's loving the microscope view.
Good. Excellent. Yeah, my life changed once I decided to get this microscope. I used to work off of my computer monitor. Actually, one moment, I'm going to grab another tool. I used to just use a USB camera and work off the monitor, which is essentially kind of what I'm doing now, because I have to sacrifice one of my viewports for the camera. But no, that's okay. It's not a complaint. But essentially, if I can see through both eyes of my microscope, your view goes to this. You get nothing. So basically, the camera takes over one of the eyes. So that's something I may upgrade in the future. Okay, let's take a close look across. Make sure I've got ribbon cables unhooked. There's still screws in here I need to remove. Just checking for the ribbon cables and connectors. There's a speaker connected here. I could get this one later, and I will get that one later. We're going to take that heatsink off first. Okay. I will do you guys a favor. I'll move back to here. And now that I'm seeing it, you probably could benefit from, let's just lower it down. Hopefully that helps a little bit. It seemed kind of far away there. Okay. Sorry, I'm kind of running out of things to discuss here. Right now we're just going to take off the heat sink and the fan, and we're getting clear down to the motherboard, which we're going to remove from the chassis of the Switch. We can undo. See, if you think this is a lot of screws, I will tell you, the PlayStation 5 has an insane amount of screws. If you ever find yourself inside of a PlayStation 5, you're going to be there for a little while. Okay, now we do have a ribbon cable plugged in for the fan. So with this pulled off to the side, I know you guys can't see that. I'm just going to go in and unhook this. Lift the latch. Now this does have that thermal compound on there as well. So basically what this does is it takes the heat from the processor up this pipe and this fan, then kind of disperses the heat out the top of the Switch. And like I said, that heat shield also helps to kind of dissipate some of the heat. I can get this speaker unplugged here.
Got a question, Tom.
Sure, you got a question?
From Sam.
From Sam.
Could you theoretically change the type of charger the Switch uses? Like instead of USB-C, could it be whatever else?
I guess if you're crafty enough, you probably could, but that's not something that I would recommend doing. The Switch has, I don't want to call it a proprietary charger, because quite frankly, I'm not that knowledgeable on the charger, but I do know that there are some unique things going on inside the Switch charger to allow it to do fast charging and stuff like that. So I would say not the best thing to do to your Switch. But I have, though, taken some older devices, like I think I showed on Facebook there, a Game Gear, where I had added a USB-C charging port to that device. So sometimes it makes sense to do something like that, but I don't think at this time that that is a good idea for the Nintendo Switch. Okay, I think carefully and slowly. All right, we have the motherboard out. We'll go back over under the microscope. Okay. So this is the charger port. Now I will show you. I'm opening up the brand new port here and I will sit it next to it. And I'll show you guys what makes the Switch harder than your average port to replace. So this is the orientation you're seeing it now. Just like this. But if you flip this port over, you'll see there's a hidden row of pins underneath that also need soldered on. Now there is no way to get a soldering iron to those. So the way that I opt to do this is with, well really it's the only way to do this, is with hot air. There may be other ways, but that seems to be about the most practical. So off camera here, I'm actually setting up some hot air, my hot air station, so we can remove this switch port. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys that side cam again so you can see kind of how I do it. You may have noticed on the edge of this table I have, maybe you can't see that, there's like a strip of this off-color tape. That is Kapton tape. It's kind of heat resistant. So the way I do this may be a bit dangerous if you don't know what you're doing or if you're not careful, because you don't want to blow your hot air onto your table. You don't want it underneath. So I like to take this hot air wand off the edge of my workstation. There's actually multiple ways to take this off, and I may actually take it off a different way. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. I'm going to carefully mount this into my board holders. So essentially I'm just kind of, is that even in, you guys can't see that. If the camera drops to the ground, that means I broke it. But I'm trying to move it around for you guys to see. So I have a second hot air workstation as well. I'm going to pull this heat wand out. I like to use a temperature around 400. You could go more, you could go less. It just kind of depends. And I'm actually getting ahead of myself. I'm not going to do that yet because, how can I show you guys this? This is difficult. Yeah, bear with me. Microscope's too close to show you under there. But what I want to do here, I'll stop fighting with things and I'll just set it down to show you what I'm doing here. Microscope. Okay, so I've turned the board over. This is the side we were looking at. On the bottom side of the board, I'm going to use leaded solder here. Manufacturing laws or whatever prevents them from using leaded solder, they have to use non-leaded solder, which has a higher melting point. So what I like to do first, as you can see, I got a really large tip on my soldering iron. It's way too big for this job. I'm going to switch that. Probably could have prepared a little bit better, but hey. We'll get there. Okay, I'm just going to let my soldering iron heat up here a little bit. While that's happening, I'm looking actually for my flux plunger. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to apply what's called flux onto, and that's way too much. Not a big deal. I'll just clean it off. There we go. I apply flux to the areas where I'm going to put solder because flux essentially helps the solder flow. And what I want to do is add this leaded solder into this unleaded solder. That way it lowers the melting point a little bit. That way when I heat it up to take the port off, it will come off more easily. All right, I think our iron is probably hot enough. Let's see if it'll, wow, that's difficult to do while looking at the computer monitor. Let's see here. I may have to raise the temperature of my soldering iron. Yeah, let's clean that off. There we go. Really the whole point is to get that to liquefy. Can you see it there? Hopefully you can. And I'm just going to kind of knock the solder around and just kind of stir it in. It's okay to have a big solder blob. We can take care of that. I'm going to turn this over, do the other two. Now, if I'm not in view on the microscope, go ahead and tell me, say something so I can get that fixed for you guys. There we go. Get this. There we go. Okay. Now I'll put my soldering iron away for just a moment. This is...
He says this is a great view.
Well, thank you. We have to change it for a moment. That view was good. I have to go back to the side cam for a moment. If I shut that off, that may help a little bit. But now it's time to take this port off of the board. And in order to do that, I like to use gravity. Now, you could heat it up a lot of different ways, from the top, from the bottom, however you feel. But I personally like to put it upside down so those pins are actually on the bottom side. The work we just did is still on top where the through hole legs are. And I'm just going to slowly heat this up, and that port should just fall right off of there. So we're going to carefully do this. It doesn't always fall off. I may help it with tweezers, but you got to be extra careful doing that because you don't want to rip any of those pads off of the motherboard. Once that happens, well, you're in trouble. You got a lot more to do to fix your device. All right, bear with me if I'm not speaking a whole lot while I do this. Takes just a little bit. I would like to have my microscope on this, and you know what, I can try, but I have to hold my wand over top like this, as you see, so it's difficult to get the microscope and the wand in there at the same time. But you'll see the replacing of the port. You should be able to get a better view of that when I put the new one on. Okay, this time, patience. I want to keep the hot air moving around. And the hot air that I'm throwing at this thing is over 400 degrees Celsius, so it is very hot. You definitely don't want to put your hand in front of it. I may bump that temperature up just a little bit if we can't get this to come off easily. You know what, I just noticed I don't have a nozzle on there. I'm going to quickly put that on there. I have pliers I'll use. There, this will help direct the airflow where I need it to go. That should help. I'm really sorry if the view's not that great, guys. We'll work on that for the future. Okay, I really am just giving it little nudges. I just want to see when it's freed up there. It's kind of moving now. You probably can't see that at your angle. We've got... Okay. And here we have the old port removed. Board is going to be hot, so kind of let it rest for just a moment here. Then I'll take that off of there, turn it over, and work on getting the solder removed from this board. We're going to replace everything with leaded solder. And yeah, I'm just being patient, waiting for it to cool right now, so bear with me. And this is to clean the flux off of there that I just put on there.
Sam has a suggestion for you.
What is it, Sam? I'm open for suggestions.
He said you should get one of those GoPro cameras you wear on your head.
That's not a bad idea, except, I'm going to give you guys, I'm sweating. So I'm not so sure I want to strap something to my head. It's hot enough working on it. Now, I usually have a fan kind of blowing at me off to the side, but, we don't want that noise in the live stream, so I don't have that running.
And Robbie would like to know what you do with the old parts.
Okay, the old parts, depends on what it is. Something like this switch port, I usually just throw that out. There's really nothing you can do with it. Now, cell phone screens, on the other hand, I do have what we call the wall of shame that I like to stick broken glass on from old phones. Not a shame on any person per se, just a shame that this device got broken. And we just like to put it on display that this is how bad it looked when it came into the shop. And we like to take care of them and fix those things. But if there's any life in any of these parts that I take off, I may, repurpose some things from, parts for other consoles. But a lot of times if I'm taking it off of there, it's no good. I'll just end up throwing it out. Or recycling it if I can, depending on what it is. Okay. Well, this is a point where I'd really like to have the microscope on, but I really don't see how we can do that. So next up, I'll take this out. Let's see if we can get you a better view. If I can do it under the microscope, I will, because I do like to keep you guys involved. I don't know that... There we go. If I can get everything involved to fit underneath this little microscope, I will. So now I'm using what is called a solder sucker, which is this device right here. What I'm going to try to do is heat the solder up, spring load this, and then you kind of get the tip down there and you can suck the solder out of these little holes. You could also use solder braid, solder wick, many different ways to go about it. This tends to work a lot of the time. We'll see if I can, the problem is I can't get I'm in here at such an angle. We'll try it. We'll see if I can get this to wick out of there. Let me readjust some things so I can look through the eyepiece here. Okay. We're a little bit blurry, I see. Trying to get you a clear view. All right. So,
Got another question, Tom.
sure, what's the question?
Joe asked, what was the most difficult repair you've done thus far at your store?
Most difficult. Gonna have to think about that one. It's probably gonna be something that ended up in our no-fix pile. There have been some things that have come in that I've given it my best effort and doesn't always work out. I'm going to have to say probably the hardest one would be on a switch, and since I have one here, it would be what I called everybody's favorite connector. I have had to replace that connector before. And as you can see, it's plastic. And heat and plastic don't go well together. So it is difficult to replace those connectors, but, when it needs done, you got to figure out a way. See if I can get this to melt. I may need to add more solder or more flux to this to get it to melt. Or put a slightly larger tip on my soldering iron, that might work too. Now I'm trying to remove solder, so it may seem counterintuitive to add solder, but it actually helps. because once a part of it is liquid, it all tends to kind of liquefy and mix together. So now that I've got that, I am working kind of in a non-typical way here, so I'm hoping not to make a mistake or bump something. Usually I would secure these down, and I wouldn't have my microscope over top. You know, we're going to do this a different way. The other way to do it is from the bottom. And I will set that up for you guys right now.
Another question.
Sure, and now's a good time for a question.
Have you ever found anything crazy inside the video game system?
Yeah, of course I have. Some things are probably better not mentioned on a live stream, but there are some items that I've found inside of consoles that are gross, or in some cases illegal. But you know, I try to just keep my nose out of people's private business, and if I come across something that shouldn't be there, I will just dispose of it myself. Now, if you have something like a bug infestation, which I unfortunately have seen those as well, we will not repair consoles if they are found to have bugs inside. Now, I'm not talking about your occasional spider or things like that, but your invasive insects, we don't deal with those at all. We would have to decline your device if it's got something like that inside. Most commonly, it's just maybe cigarette smoke tar, or lots of dust, or pet hair, stuff like that. So what I'm doing now, I can at least flip to this wonky side cam that I've set up my air underneath the edge of the table, like I'd mentioned before, and we're blowing air up onto the bottom here. So I'm going to kind of direct the air a little bit to the left, and I will just kind of wait for these to liquefy, and they will never liquefy if I don't set the temperature high enough. So let me do that. All right, that should work. I try to keep the air as low as possible, air speed that is, because once that liquefies, you know, the components around it, there's a chance that they could get knocked off, and we want to be definitely careful not to do that. So we just wait here. I will add a bit of flux to this. Try to do just a tiny amount. Can't put a new port on if the holes are obstructed with the old solder, so we need to make sure those get out. Oh, whoops. Hey, that one worked. See how the solder came out of that? Now I'm holding this at a strange angle, so it may not work so well on every one of these. Just like that one. So I'll flip you guys to a separate cam, and I'm going to.
So Robbie would like you to explain again what flux is.
Flux is designed to help the solder flow. So if you didn't have flux, when your solder dries, it can crack, and you don't have a good connection that way. It's about the best way I can word that. It is something that's possible to demonstrate. Not really set up to demonstrate that now, but maybe we can demonstrate that on a future live stream. This solder is being very stubborn, not coming out of this hole. There you go, it's almost out. Okay. And you know, I actually kind of skipped a step I usually do. It's maybe a little irrelevant, but once the port comes off, I usually will inspect the area right away to see if any pads have lifted, which I did not do that, but we'll do that in a moment when I turn it over. I got one more hole here to clear. Then you guys will have a better view. For now, you just get to see my legs. Hope you enjoy it. So, for example, right now, struggling getting the solder out of this one hole. Wow, you guys just see a nice shiny ball of light. You don't see anything. But I'm going to add a little bit of solder there. Try again. Got another comment over there?
Yeah, your wife just put a heart smiley face for you.
For my legs. Thank you, Kendra. Okay.
James says, I'm paying attention, but man, I'm lost. No way the average human does this at home. Laugh out loud.
All right, I think I got this cleared out. Let me carefully shut this hot air station off and put this wand away. Safety first. I mean, the last thing I need is a burn or a fire, so. Got kind of a mess of cables here. I feel like I just need a shirt at this point that says bear with me, because I think I've said that like 10 times in this stream. Okay. Let's take the weight off. We'll go back. Okay. So this is the top side of the board minus the charger port. So the only thing really left to do on the top side here is to take off the solder that's on these pads. Yeah, I don't know how long we've been on stream, but I feel like this is taking longer than that hour I had said. Maybe you want to update me, how long have we been live?
All I'm seeing is 1 hour.
Oh, okay, well then we're either too long or we've been doing it for an hour. Anyway, we're going to carry on. I'm waiting for my soldering iron to get hot here.
Hour 31.
An hour 31. Okay, that's pretty long. We may just reattach this port here, and we may just kind of wrap up the stream at that time. We may reassemble. I don't know. We'll see what I feel like. It's always good to reassemble and test, but in this case, we're going kind of long. It's not my intention to drag everyone out so late, so. This is solder wick or a solder braid, desoldering braid. Maybe you can see it here. This might be old Radio Shack stuff. Yeah, I have better soldering braid somewhere, but this stuff works just fine. Its job is to kind of absorb the solder, kind of like a sponge. It's just copper braid. So if you get the solder to melt, you can see how it's kind of wicking up into the braid. Yeah, sometimes you end up with burnt flux and stuff. Now, something I didn't mention, maybe it's just I take it for granted a lot, but like this little component here, little capacitors, MOSFETs, and all this stuff. You really have to be careful working around those, especially with the hot air and your soldering iron. You can bump any of that stuff, knock it off, and not even realize it. Then you put everything back together, and you got problems. You got to go back and looking for what went wrong. It can happen. It does happen. Okay. So now I'm going to, this is just 99% isopropyl alcohol. I like to use that to get the flux cleaned off of the board. It evaporates really quickly, so as long as you mix it in with your flux and kind of brush it off the board, you kind of see it all over my mat there. You'll also see there are some spots here where I didn't get every little bit of solder. That's fine, because essentially what we're doing now, I'm going to inspect these holes, which I am kind of concerned about this one. I'm not sure if that's completely clear, and that one. I think I may need to get the hot air back out and take care of those before I can continue.
We have a couple comments for you.
All right, I'm ready for some comments. We can do that while I'm doing
Chris
this.
says we'd like to see a reassemble and test.
Okay.
And Sam said, yeah, I can't.
Reassemble and test. All right then. If you guys want to hang out that long, I'm down. I just didn't want to inconvenience you guys who want to watch, so we'll go all the way to the end with it then. So for now, I'm heading back out to try to get the rest of the solder out of those little spots. So before I use the hot air, I can try to use the solder wick. I'll bring it back and give it a shot. Sometimes it'll work. We're going to add our flux. Now, because this has some solder on the very end of it, I'm going to snip off the end of that solder braid. And I'm going to see if I can get that to absorb what's left in that little opening down there. In my experience, the answer is usually no. I usually have to get the hot air back out, but I'm just making an attempt here in an effort to kind of shorten the time. Might burn my mat. We'll see. Okay. Yo, I think that worked okay. Let's try again on this one. You guys got a blurry view there? That is a little blurry. I'm going to adjust the camera, see if I can clear up that blur for you guys. Maybe, if I can get this screw out. There we go. Very touchy under the microscope. That's about as good as I can get that for you. We're going to carry on. So the new port might fit in those spots, but I just don't want to risk it being unaligned, not aligned properly with all those pins underneath. So let's get in with this one. Oh, that's what I mean. See how I just kind of jerked around there? If there were components there, I very easily could have knocked something off. All right. Okay, this hole looks mostly clear. There's still a little bit of obstruction in that one. Got really quiet. Sorry, I know that's on me. Man, we even lined up more devices to fix too, but yeah, we're obviously not going to go any further. This switch will be the last one. Okay, I think we may still have some of that unleaded solder in there, so we're going to add some more of my low melt solder to mix with what's there. Yeah, it's not wanting to melt. Okay. I haven't been able to look, but I'm curious how many viewers we have right now.
We're at 5 right now.
5. That's actually more than I anticipated. Thank you guys for showing up and being interested in this sort of thing. I'm going to try to keep a copy of this. Like I said, it's my first live stream, so I'm really not sure how this is going to go afterwards. I'd like to keep a copy of this video on YouTube or something like that. I'm just kind of wiggling around with the hot iron here to try to get it to start absorbing into the solder braid. Then we're on to reassembly, and that's a lot less tedious than what we're doing right now. Yeah. We're going to use hot air. I don't have the patience to continue wrestling with that. So, one moment, we'll get you something on screen here. Okay, we're going to line my nozzle up underneath. Okay, we're going back at this spot with hot air. I'm going to try to use my solder sucker to get that out of there so we can move on. Yeah, and Sam, I think you were right about your average person doing this in their home, but I kind of did this for my home for a long time. Right out of my basement. That's where the business started. Alright, I got that out of there. There's just one more spot on the right. I'm going to grab while I got the hot air underneath it. Is that in? Yeah, it's in view. Okay. No. There we go. Maybe this one down here looks a little rough. I'll take care of it. Okay. I feel a lot better about that. Still maybe not perfect, but I think we're good to go.
Sam says, proved my point. You're not average. And your wife should, I'm sure your wife is happy it's not in the basement anymore. You've come a long way.
Yeah, I like to use the phrase, my wife and I agreed that it was time to find a better place for all of my electronics. Really took up a whole wall of our basement. Okay, I'm gonna wait to brush any of this. I think it's too hot here. I'll tell you, if you have a passion in life, you really got to follow your dreams, follow your passion, because that's where your happiness is. I've had plenty of jobs. I've worked in the IT fields. I've worked in a factory. I've never really been totally happy with my job until now. I mean, I do enjoy going to work in the morning and doing this sort of thing, sharing my skills with the community. If any of you are eagle-eyed, you'll notice that there's still solder in this hole here, but being as it's right in the middle, I'm going to test fit that port in, and if it fits down in there correctly, we'll just carry on. It may not, though. We'll see here in just a second. Okay. So we are not ready to solder this on yet, but I am ready to kind of, oh yeah, see on the top side? No, you don't see on the top side. Why is that so blurry for the stream? Trying to get you a good view, but I'm looking right here. That still has too much solder. I really don't think this is going to fit correctly, but as promised, here we go. I'm going to just stick it on the board. And to my surprise, it's fitting in there just fine. So we are not going to struggle. And what I'm looking for on the top is that all of the pins are straight. Okay. So now we prep it for the new port. This is the fun part. Applying the solder to the pads. This is a good demonstration for flux. Watch when I add the new solder here. Robbie, if you're still watching, this would be a good example for you. When I start dragging the solder across these ports, it's going to or these pads rather, it's going to kind of suck into place. See how that kind of just sucked onto these pads? And it's not bridging, it's not going across the pads, it's staying where it's supposed to. It's doing that because of the flux. I would like to show you what it would do without the flux, but then I'd have to clean everything up again. So what I'm doing here, I'm adding solder to all of these pads. See, there's a bridge. Okay. And each one of these pads has the job of connecting to an individual pin on the underside of that port. So I think we're prepped up pretty good here. So what I like to do is clean that flux off of there. So I can get a better view. And then I like to drag a tool across the pads and kind of feel the bumps. That gives me kind of a way to know if I've got enough solder on the pads. And the top feels pretty good, the bottom feels pretty good. You can kind of see it at an angle. They're like little speed bumps on there. So what we're going to do now.
Question for you.
Okay, we got a question. I'll take a question.
Michael says, I know the switch, etc., but I missed what it was doing issue-wise. Been working for the past 40 minutes. So he wants to know what the issue was.
Oh, okay. So the issue was, and I still have the old port here handy. There's a bent pin in the old port. I don't know if you can see that. Right over in this area right here, there is a pin that got kind of crammed back in there and broke off. So this particular switch Still kind of worked until the battery died, I believe. That was just a report from the customer. When I see something like that with a broken port, I do not want to add power to it to do any testing. I just assume the worst, that it's totally broken, and just replace the port. Then we do our testing after. So there is still kind of a chance that there's more going on inside the switch, but we don't really know anything until we get the charger port in good repair so we can plug it in. Okay, so now that I've prepared those pads, next up we're going to do what's called tinning these points on the bottom of the new charger port. And what I mean by that is I'm going to do the same thing I did to the pads. We're going to add flux, and we're going to put a little bit of solder on all of these pins. My soldering iron is heating up again. It went to sleep on me there. I've got a holder that will turn my soldering iron off after a little bit if I don't touch it. Trust me, that's for the better. I have left them on way too long before. Okay, now with the help of that flux, I can just pull a little bit of solder off of the tip of my soldering iron onto these pins. Doesn't have to be a lot, but you want it to be enough that it will kind of hold on to the solder that we put down on the pads. You want these to kind of grab each other. I may add a little bit more up here. Oh, there we have a bridge. I have to fix that. Easy to fix. Fixed. Okay. So now this is prepped. Next order of business, install the port. Now this is, unfortunately for you guys, going back to that leg view. Look at that.
Joe would like to know how hot can those irons get up to?
I think my iron has a limit of somewhere around 500 maybe, but I don't take it that high. The amount of heat you use is going to be dependent on the job you're doing and how efficient you are with your soldering iron. So currently I have my iron set to 430. I really would like to get you guys in there, but that light really, no bueno. Let's go back to the microscope. Maybe I can make this work. Yeah. All right. So now, back to the under air heat. We're going to heat the board up again to where all of those little solder pads, the solder that I put on them, should melt. We should see it visually melt. Once that happens, I'm going to drop the new port on, make sure it's aligned, and then remove the heat, hold the port down, and you'll see from there, I suppose. We're going to make sure we have flux. I know it seems like I'm adding and then I'm cleaning it off. I'm adding it, then I'm cleaning it off. It does kind of burn, if you will, so the flux is always best fresh. It kind of melts away, so I like, every time I'm done using it, I like to clean it off the board. And then I'll start again the next time I need flux. So I have the port in a pair of tweezers in my hand. I'm going to turn on the hot air now. And now we wait. Now this is the low melt solder, so you should see it kind of liquefy faster than the original when we were taking the port off, you know. And this honestly is the slow way of doing it. I have replaced these ports extremely fast before, by just heating up this area, and then I'll just take the old port off and just drop the new one on there. You can do that. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. But I kind of opted to take this route so you could see every step in the process and see what's actually going on. There was a customer of mine that I spoke with recently who was discussing their device, and they had a port that they were considering attempting to replace themselves. And that person asked me if it was a glue that you use underneath. You know, there's no glue under here. And if you do use glue, you're making a big mess, a big problem for the technician that does eventually have to get that fixed, if they even take the job. Thankfully, I have not had anything like that come in, so I don't know exactly how hard it is to remove super glue or something like that from the board, but I don't think I'd want to find out. Okay, it's starting to get pretty warm. We should see all those solder pads just kind of change color. They'll get shiny. It's just about there. Thanks again to everyone who's viewing the stream for sticking around this long. I know it's been a long one. And we do have a little ways to go. Once we get this port on here, it should be, you know, just reversing the process of taking it apart. I'm not so sure those are liquid. I'm going to wait a little bit more. Oops, just about dropped my heat wand there. Okay, you can kind of see them changing now. If you didn't notice that, they are melted now. That solder is soft. So now I carefully put the new port in place. I'm holding it down, I'm holding pressure down on it, and I'm taking that heat away. I'm going to continue holding pressure down on this for about 15 to 20 seconds. And if all went well, those pads should all be soldered to those pins. Or vice versa, however you want to phrase that. I'm getting my heat wand out of the way. And the best way for us to know, now this is hot, so I'm going to use my tweezers. We can only check half of them. So I'm going to check the half that I can check. See if I can get this in here. And the way we check that is with what's called the nudge test. So where we take a pair of fine tip tweezers, we'll just go in on each pin and I give it a little nudge. They're not moving so far. Every one of those is fine and in place. So then I would like to, I'm just going to pick it up and check, make sure it's flat to the board, and it is. So I do believe that is a port replacement. So now we need to take these legs here, all 4 of those, fill them with solder, because that's what's going to keep it from breaking off, you know, when you're plugging the cable in and out. Otherwise it's just using, you know, the support of those pins we just did. We'll do 2 at a time. And I'm still using my low melt solder. There's no reason not to. Okay, waiting for my iron to heat up. Beep, should be hot. Then we just put some heat on it. Fill it up with solder. And there is a final little trick I like to do. So we got the solder on there. we'll do it on all four of these. Then I like to kind of take the heat gun, or the heat wand there, put a very fine tip on it, and just direct the air right at those little spots. Just to flow it down to the other side. Make sure that it's all secure. Kind of smashing it in there too, that may help. See, the only downside to adding more hot air is you don't want it to fall off the board or, you know, start over. That would be very unfortunate. And it has happened to me before. You'll have those things occur while you're learning new skills. Okay. Before I use hot air, I'm going to flip it over and just do a visual inspection. It may not be required. Oh yeah, that solder came through mostly. Just that one there. And we can always just add solder to the back side. Just a little tight down in there. I like how it came up through like on this leg and this one over here. This one's pretty good. This one's probably okay, but we can make it better. There. That should keep it in place. Okay. I just bumped this camera, it's jiggling. We'll get this out of the way. We're getting there, folks. Thanks again for sticking it out with me. Just realized it's getting dark outside. So I'm just removing all the flux off the board. Crossing my fingers that this actually does work. That would be a nice way to end the stream, wouldn't it? But I will share this much. When you work doing repairs, especially electronics repairs, it can be very stressful because there have been repairs that I've done that I feel so confident about, and you get everything put back together and it just doesn't work, or you find out you made a mistake, or you missed something, or there's some other part that is faulty and you can't find it, or, you know, these things do happen. I am gathering the screws that I put on the other mat that you guys, off that right camera, bear with me, I'm just grabbing that stuff and moving it over so you can see what I'm doing. There's one. 2, 3. We're going to learn how to count today. Okay. And the cartridge slot. Okay. Focus? Don't focus? Okay. It's not focusing. I just wanted to show you the port, but I think you saw it pretty good under the microscope there. Time to reassemble. So, we're going to get all of these ribbon cables out of the way as much as we can. There's a lot of them. Got this one, got that one. We got okay. Just trying to carefully and cautiously get this board underneath all these ribbon cables without breaking any of them. Good news is I have a whole stockpile of parts consoles, so in the event that that kind of thing happens, I can usually take care of it. But like I said before, preventing it is the best way to go about it. I'm definitely missing something here. It's not going down. Oh yeah, of course. Okay. Nope. I lost one ribbon cable underneath here. Yeah, it's difficult. Reassembly is always touchy.
Sam says he's watching through the KFC drive-through. All the soldering made him hungry.
You want to bring some by the shop, Sam? Just kidding. Please don't do that. Okay, so the last thing we're going to hook up is the battery. That's the first thing that we unhooked, so obvious reasons there. Man, I'm going to bend this boom down. Sorry for the shaking. See if I can get you guys a little bit closer yet. That may be about the best I can do today. Maybe straighten the camera a little bit. So yeah, again, sorry for the quality. We'll work on that. But now, carefully, I'm going to be reinserting all of the ribbon cables into all of their homes. Which is difficult, so that may be why I'm not saying anything. Okay, we'll do the speaker later.
Sam says, I got you, bro. Bucket of chicken on the way. I'll throw in a biscuit.
Yeah, I actually already ate, Sam. I hope you didn't actually do that. I appreciate you, buddy. Thank you. Man, that makes me think I probably should set up some kind of a donation link, because that would be probably more appropriate. But that's fine. Really, the purpose of me doing this live stream is to just kind of share with everyone what it is that we do here. Because that is a question that I get the most. I'll get foot traffic come in the store. What do you guys do? I know it's not very well advertised yet. We're working on signage and stuff for the front of the building. So I think if you're here watching, you pretty well understand what it is that we do. Okay, I know this is exciting. Watching me plug everything in. The next exciting part is I'm pretty sure this battery is already dead. So when we plug it in, if we just see so much as see the little battery charging indicator, that will be a sign that it's been a success for me. Here's that ribbon cable that I was talking about, that everybody's favorite. So if this gets broken, it's mucho problemo. This is the moment of truth where it breaks. Good. We are good. Passed. Just realized how far out of frame I was. Okay, we got these little connectors going. These are just push on. You know, it's kind of late in the stream to give a shout out, but I also want to give a shout out to Harvey Brothers Gaming and Entertainment across town. Ryan and Dana and their whole family, really. I've known them for a very long time. They're good people. It's a good business. Head out there and support those guys if you can. We actually don't sell video games in this store yet. We do mostly hardware here. So if you do come in for service, on the bottom of your receipt, you'll be able to get yourself a coupon to use out at Harvey Brothers as well. Get some games to go with your freshly repaired console.
Ryan was actually in the stream, right? I don't know if he's in here still or not.
Oh, well, maybe he'll pop back in. Having some trouble with this one connector, which is odd because usually it's not that much trouble to plug in. It is tonight. I just can't get it lined up. Once it's lined up, I just push it down. There we go. Got it. No, I didn't. It popped right back up. Sorry, guys. Take off the glove. See if I can do it with my finger here. Got it. Yeah. Okay. Really, we need to start screwing the board back down. I've shifted around all my screws, so I just have to look at everything here, make sure I got all my screws in the correct places. Those are for case, these are from the inside. Okay. Runaway screw. Just trying to make sure I'm actually not lined up correctly. There's a little post down here I should be on and it's not on there. Gotta get that first. There we go. Now I can screw the board down. And there's something else to consider. This microphone that I'm using is a wireless mic, so hopefully the batteries last as long as the stream does. That would be nice. Okay. Now here I'm just kind of moving this thermal, it's like a thermal putty. It's not even really, I have used like Arctic MX4 in these before, which is a thermal compound. But I stopped doing that because that stuff is really runny. And this stuff is It's more of a putty, and it gets kind of smashed into place anyway. So I like to just kind of pile it back where it belongs. And then when you screw it down, everything kind of just smashes into place. Okay, got to get this ribbon cable on. This is kind of a difficult one. I've created a shadow for myself so I can't see underneath there. I'll take it to the microscope for this one. Maybe you can join me. Yeah. So what I'm attempting to do is plug this little ribbon cable into this little socket here. Get in there, little guy. There we go. Then lock it down. Okay. Just double thinking before I do anything. I feel like, no, I don't want to do this yet. I want to get the cart slot in here because it's much easier to plug this in before you put these screws in. It's hard enough to see when that's aligned where it goes. You kind of just have to feel for it. I don't know if you can tell what I'm even doing. I'll bring it back over. We're just going to bounce around, guys. I'd rather you see what I'm doing. There's a little socket right here underneath. It runs under there. This plugs into that. So I need to do that next, or it's going to be really difficult. It's hard enough now. And I'm going to try to keep it in frame while I struggle with it. There we go. There. I don't know if you heard that snap down, but that was kind of satisfying. And that just made me realize something else. I need to take that back because there's a screw under here I need to put down, which you didn't see. It's right up here. I need to make sure I get this screw in. Yeah, it was this one here. Now I got to do that again. I hope everybody's having as much fun as I am. I know Sam is. Okay. Well, I didn't get that satisfying click out of it this time, but I do believe that is plugged in. All right. This is next. That digitizer cable. Okay. Going back to the other workspace. are getting close to testing. Not too far away. I have just about everything that I need to test it plugged in. Still plenty of screws to put back. But we're pretty close. Let's see if I can plug this in with these needle nose. Just use
Ryan says
tweezers.
thanks for a shout out.
Oh, you're welcome, Ryan. You guys do a good job out there. You deserve it. And to be honest, if it weren't for Ryan, I mean, I'm not sure I'd even be able to do this. He was a good inspiration for me. It is possible to start your own business and do what you want to do with your life. Okay, battery's plugged on. I really should screw down the processor, or I'm sorry, the heatsink and the fan. I'll get this stuff secured down before we plug it in. Here, I'll start with the fan. And then I must have had one run away from me. I'm actually missing a screw. How is that? It's a large head screw like that one. Well, now we can do testing without that. I have more screws. Not a big deal. I'll go get one. Kind of curious what happened to the one I'd laid there, though. It's kind of odd. Now, I believe we are 3 screws away from performing a test on it. So we're right there. Of course, I'm halfway out of the frame there. Okay, switch charger. We do need, actually we do not really need, we can test without that SD card slot in there. There we go. So now this charger port works. It's taking a charge. And just to check all of those pins, we know half of them work because the other half are for the other side of the cable. Bingo. This switch is fixed. What you're seeing there is a little bit of glue from a tempered glass that was on here. That will clean off. So repair is done. We just need to finish reassembly here. That's good news. I want to look over everything and make sure I'm not forgetting a screw somewhere, which I am, and I see where it goes. There it goes. Right here. Because I do believe The rest of that is part of this shield. So like before, I'm kind of pushing up the, it's not really the best way to do this, but I don't have any of that like putty compound to use. So like I said before, if I replace it with what I have here, it's runny and it's messy. It'll work, but I just prefer not to. And also I need to locate that one screw that ran away from me. There's always one. Don't know where it could have gone. Okay, hang tight. I have a parts bin back here. I'm just going to grab another one. Wherever, here it is. I know you can't see me, and my apologies for that. Yeah, big old box of switch parts. So all I need is one screw. Maybe I should look on the floor. You know what, I bet I'll rewatch the stream and see where it went, but oh well. Joy-Con screws. Oh, well, I found one. Okay. I got what we need right here. There you go. Another reason to bring it to me. If that happened to you at home, what would you do? Put it back together without a screw, I guess. Okay, yep, I will now use my electric screwdriver. This thing has a funny name. It's actually called a wow stick, but I do like it. I mean, wow. And that took significantly longer than it usually takes me to do that kind of repair. I think I'll just blame it on nervousness from the live stream. But often we can do this a lot faster than what you saw here. Okay. Actually, I need to take this one back out. SD card slot needs to go back in. To get that lined up. Then once we get it charged enough, I'll pop a game into it, make sure that it reads games, connect it to Wi-Fi. We need to make sure that everything works as intended. But that is also why we provide a warranty with our repairs. If something does slip past us, we don't fully test something, anything really could happen there. And if you take your device home and you see something's not right, I want all of our customers to feel comfortable bringing that back. We want to be able to service everyone the best we can. Okay. I found my screw. See it in there? You can see the reflection. Well, gotta get that out. There we go. It got stuck to the heat sink fins apparently. Now I got to backtrack. I could try to just reach in there with tweezers and pull that out, but I'd rather just go get it this way. Oh, missing one here. You guys have any other questions for me or anything while we're nearing the end of the stream?
Your wife says good thing you have that wow stick.
It's amazing, let me tell you. Makes me go, wow. No, really though, I do like it. So, just gonna kind of loosen this up so I can lift it. Should have known when I went digging for parts in another bin that something was up. Okay, can we shake it free? Maybe. Nope. I think we're gonna have to do. It's right there. It's just too big. Can't slide it out that way. Wasn't expecting that to happen. Oh, there. Now maybe I can get it. Got it. Reminds me of that game Operation. And I probably did that just out of view of the camera too, didn't I? And are we across 2 hours?
We are at
Probably so. Yeah, 2.5 probably.
2 hours, 31 minutes.
That is a long stream, guys. Really didn't intend for that to happen either, but hey, here we are. Do we have any other questions or comments you guys would like to throw out there? Or are we all just patiently waiting for me to reach the end here? I did this again too. I put the screw in where I should have waited. It's okay, we'll put that one up there. Carefully plug this. These are called ZIF connectors. I've actually tried to find some of these online and I have not been able to. So that's another reason why I keep parts consoles around, because if doing what I'm doing here, if someone were to try this and say smash that connector up or bend all these pins, then you have to go through the process of removing the old connector, placing a new one on. Okay, that's plugged in now. See, most of this stuff can be repaired or replaced. There are some components on some consoles that just end up being the death of the console too, so not everything can be fixed. Okay. Last few screws here, we're getting there. Okay, let's do tri-wing screws first, since we're already here. There you go. Oh, it's blurred out. I guess you can see the ticket number. Maybe this is your switch. Try to conceal the customer information.
So Sam has a question for you.
Yes, Sam. What's your question, buddy?
What was the problem on the old Xbox with the red ring of death? What causes that? Is it an easy fix?
Red ring of death on the Xbox 360. There's a whole conversation to go with that. So, I would have answered this question a certain way 10 years ago, and I would have felt so confident in my answer too. And I know now that what I knew then was wrong. So I'll give you the current information, and I'm going to wrap it up as big time manufacturing defect. Big problem. So the old way of fixing those was doing a reflow or a reball. It was believed for quite a while in the repair community that the problem was their lead-free solder. Everyone was kind of blaming that because when you took those devices and you reheated the APUs inside enough to reflow that solder underneath, the Xbox would a lot of times come back on. You'd be able to revive it by doing a reflow. And that's actually where I got my start doing serious repairs. I got my first rework station doing Xbox 360s and PlayStations. And a lot of times you could do reflows or reballs, which means kind of like we did with the switch port, you can remove the processor in a similar way. And instead of it being pins, it's just a series of little balls underneath. You can replace all those. It is definitely not easy work. But so to answer your question, it's a manufacturing defect in the chips that basically handle the graphics, the GPU, if you will. Now, in later models of the game consoles, these are combined into one chip, which is called the APU, that does basically CPU and GPU together. But the problem is the way that they were designed. The same exact answer goes for the PlayStation 3 of the same era. I guess I'm kind of babbling, but NVIDIA was responsible for creating those chips for both of those companies, and they had a certain process that they would follow in the manufacturing line that ultimately failed. My best understanding is that it was kind of a new technique or a kind of a new technology at the time, and there just was a defect where the layers of the chip would separate from one another after a bunch of heat cycles. So if you're familiar with expansion and contraction, every time something heats up or cools down, it's going to expand or contract. And after a few cycles of that, or many cycles of that in some cases, those chips ultimately die. And the reflow that we were doing back then, what we believed was just reflowing the solder underneath, was basically reattaching the different layers of the chip back to itself. And it was just under the, we were under the impression that it was the solder underneath that was actually the problem, but it's the chip itself. So there are certain models of Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 that we won't even accept in the store for repair for just that reason. They are destined to die. It's a manufacturing problem. Microsoft and Sony did make attempts to replace these consoles for those people that were affected. But you know, there's no way that they could get to everybody. I hope that answers your question. There's a lot of information that goes into that. And if you really want to know, send me an email at tom@GameOver.tech, and I can send you some information on that. It's kind of a rabbit hole thing where you can kind of go down that and see what the real problems were. But good news is we're at the end of the stream. Switch console is now working with a new replacement port. We do need to, let it charge before the console will boot up, and I don't really have Joy-Cons handy right now to go through all the testing, but this is enough to know that the port that I placed in there is good. We will have to snap this thing on a dock, and go through all the testing, but that's essentially it, guys. I appreciate you sticking around for all this. This was just kind of a trial thing. I thought I'd give it an effort. I do get requests a lot to go live or record my repairs so you guys can see them. I'm going to look over the comments and see if we can improve kind of the audio video kind of aspect of this. Maybe a little better planning or a script or something in the future would help us out. But I think I'm going to go ahead and sign off for this evening. I'm getting tired. It's dark outside. So stop on by the shop sometime when we're open, 7 North Detroit Street. We'd like to see you guys. If you have any devices that need repaired, bring them in, show us what's going on, and we'll see if we can get you an estimate for repair. So thanks again, guys. I'm going to end the stream now. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.